Welcome, welcome, welcome to this exciting episode of AWS GenAI Live. My name is Brian Terry, and I'm a Senior Partner Solution Architect here at AWS, focusing on GenAI, specifically GenAI migrations. And I'm joined here with my good friend, Wayne. Wayne, how about you introduce yourself?
Hi, Brian. Thanks for kicking us off. Hi, my name is Wayne Sachs. I'm a partner solutions architecture leader here at AWS, and we're excited to have everybody. Our guests, not quite yet on stage, and all of our viewers and listeners across the web. It's great to have you every Wednesday from 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific here on GenAI Live, where we talk with our partners at AWS all about generative AI and the things that they're doing, the customers they're talking with, the cool solutions that they're building, and all of the things that they see for the future. And it's exciting to have you here, Brian. It's good to be back.
Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, and this is the first time joining us here at GenAI Live. This is a place where you learn about the latest and greatest of what AWS is doing in the GenAI space, along with our partners. So, Wayne, we have some exciting news coming up. I think there's a summit, the New York Summit specifically.
There is the New York Summit, and that is exciting. I love the New York Summit. It's just, just like a close second to reInvent in terms of like the sheer magnitude of all of the AWS stuff that gets discussed and all the stuff that we can learn about. Undoubtedly, there'll be a lot of discussion around generative AI at the New York Summit. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm super excited. This is actually one of the ones I'm actually going to be attending. So I'm super excited to get out of this virtual space and into the public.
Yeah, yeah. And since people may or may not know, the New York Summit is
I think it's a couple weeks. 14th, I think.
I gotta know. I gotta look it up. July 15th.
I was close. So July
I know.
15th. Yeah, so please join us at the New York Summit. It is a free event, and it's like mini re-event. It's super cool. You're going to get to meet the latest and greatest of who's doing stuff in GenAI, and also you get to learn some cool stuff.
You know what? I actually think it's the 16th, but New York is always good for 2 days.
Well, you want to get there
That's
early,
embarrassing.
I guess.
That's right. That's 15th early. That's exactly right. At the Javits Center, it's going to be a ton. There's going to be a lot of people. There's going to be a bunch of partners. There's going to be a whole bunch of Amazonians. There's going to be obviously a bunch of customers. It will be chock full of breakout sessions and chalk talks and builder sessions and all of the things that people love to do, get their hands dirty, try out new stuff, hear the announcements, go to the keynote, all of it. And you got to put on your walking shoes because you'll do several miles in the Javits Center, which is like an enormous structure, and it's going to be great. And I'll be there. Brian will be there. Come hunt us down and say hello.
Yes, absolutely. Now, back to today's show. So this is a live show. So if you post comments, we'll try to get those in as much as we can. We are not AI generated, and this is not a recorded session. So this is definitely live. So we're here to answer your questions, and we encourage you to ask questions.
So Brian, something that really got me pretty jazzed up this week, I gotta say, Project Rainier.
Oh, okay.
I'm excited, right? Like, it probably won't come up in the context of the discussions with our partners since it just came out, or we just talked about it, in the news. But man, supercomputer,
Yeah. What you seem to be super excited about it. Tell me more. Why the total excitement on it?
right? Built on Trainium 2 chips, it's going to be a very powerful supercomputer. And I can't speak to the specifics of where it will line up in the pantheon of supercomputers, but I think it's like up at the top end. And like, who doesn't love having a supercomputer at their disposal?
That's quite amazing.
Yeah, and I think you're right, and it's built specifically for training models, supporting our partners, right, our model building partners as they're trying to build models, cutting edge computing. And hey, it's
Yeah.
it's an exciting time to be in the space.
Yeah, it's super interesting too. I mean, the possibility of being able to get your hands on like powerful computing like this and even storage AWS just kind of makes that super possible and super easy. So,
Yeah, and I think it came with two new EC2 types, right? EC2 Ultra servers and EC2 Ultra clusters,
oh wow.
which are optimized for like ultra low latency, high high compute workloads. I'm gonna have to actually personally get much deeper into it. Um, I bet I won't be able to get my hands on it though.
I'm
Like,
sure you would, Wayne. We can make that happen.
well, we'll try. We'll try. We'll see what happens. I might get an email. Hey, what are you doing? Um, but this is it's an exciting time, and obviously I haven't actually seen the New York Summit breakout sessions and all all the things that they're discussing. But I bet somewhere in that New York Summit there's going to be a discussion of Rainier,
Oh
and it
yeah,
seems like the kind of thing that'll make it. So
absolutely.
we have some exciting guests today, some good partners who want to tell us all about what they're doing and who we want to hear from. Shall we bring our first partner on stage?
Yeah, let's bring him in. Hello, Ahmed. How about you introduce yourself and welcome to the show?
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Wayne. I'm Ahmed Newman. I'm Group CTO at Firemind. Firemind, we're an AWS only data and AI specialist partner in EMEA.
Absolutely. Welcome to the show. We're super excited to hear from you. So tell us a little bit, well, actually tell the audience a little bit about Firemind. I'm actually know quite a bit about your company and a huge fan. So tell them a little bit more about what you do, what you guys specialize in.
Very kind. Firemind was formed in 2018. We formed essentially a data and AI company, starting initially with consultancy. And then at the turn of the thousands, we kind of started going through building products, looking mainly at things like visualization, data pipelines. And then Bedrock came almost 3 years ago now. I actually built, we had first access to Bedrock across the EMEA, which is really great. I built the very first version of a product we have called Pulse, having summited a mountain here in the UK called Snowdon. We're actually going to climb this again this weekend. So my team and I are going up there and going to plant a Firemind flag up there as well. And ever since then, we've just accelerated out into a lot of the stuff, helping companies really automate a lot of their boring work with the power of GenAI and really trying to, invert that triangle. So really fun stuff, really at the edge. It's not the easiest stuff because working with probabilistic models is always fun and games, right? So, but hey, listen, I hugely enjoy it, and we have a great team around us as well. So it's good times.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of. Actually, I'm a fan of the company. I'm a fan of you too, because you're more than just kind of a high level executive. You actually put hands on keyboard to create solutions. So, tell us a little bit about what kind of solutions you're creating and where your company's kind of going.
Yeah, you got to walk the walk, right? I think we are again. We are not a very big company, but we're really, really batting above our average, and we have to walk the walk. So the key thing for us at the moment now is I make this joke when I see a lot of customers. Big models are great, very, very advanced models are really, really great. But when we're trying to do things like invoice processing or reconciliation or compliance, we don't always need the Ferrari of models, right? And we say, well, what is the best car in the world? And no offense to VWs and Toyotas, right? But probably the best car in the world is a VW sedan or a Toyota sedan, right? Because it will do everything. So because it will give us the efficiency, it gives us everything. So I always joke that our work is boring work, really, really boring work. And what this enables us to do as an organization is then apply these kind of methodologies of optimizing, high effort, low value human work and putting really cutting edge technology onto it. So the things that we're applying now and things that we're seeing, along with agentic systems, kind of like orchestration based systems, including transport things like MCP as well. It's really thinking about small fine-tuned models as well to do really, really simple tasks. I always joke that the first example we saw of this is for those of you that ever watched the sitcom Silicon Valley, when he made the app, that was the food finder app. and it was hot dog or no hot dog, right? That was the first, if we think about it, multimodal SLM, right? And this is almost the best way, because when you have organizations that can't quite understand the grasp of a probabilistic output, but they need to know whether this invoice is valid relative to a PO, for example, and they need the certainty up in the high 90s, which is almost quite hard to achieve on an F1 score on a large model, for example. The smaller the model, the more consistent we provide the output, the training that we provide into it doesn't have to be the fastest, best thing in the world, but it just has to be super specific. So the interesting part here is then it's more than just about inference. It's about how we build the data pipeline to validate how we then train that model, and then how we put it all together in this kind of multi-orchestration piece that, we're seeing something now again where people are talking about the context API. We've always said that the magic that we're going to see now, over the next 8 years, because we're already 2 years into this revolution, if data scientists were last decade, the people now are like the business analysts, the business process managers, because these are the people that help us extract the data, prepare the pipelines, prepare the models, build out the orchestration systems to provide that context to make sure processes are achieving accuracy up in the high 90s. And that's what we're really excited by.
It does not sound like boring work, by the way. So I'm gonna have to call shenanigans on on your tagline there. That sounds very cool. So tell us a little bit more about some of the real world, problems that you've run into that you've been able to apply your methodology to. Because this sounds like I love the context, like the theory. Now let's talk about the application.
Yeah, I think without naming names, I'm not sure we can or we can't, but I'll give you a perfect example. We all bank somewhere. Majority of us bank somewhere, right? Here in Europe, in the UK, specifically in Ireland as well, there are rules about language. And let's say, banking, financial instruments are relatively complex things, right? There's different ways to bank. There's different ways to store your money. There's different things that can happen if you're not thinking about your money correctly. So fees, if you think interest, overdraft, etc., if you think credit checking, right? This is really complicated stuff. But especially in Europe, there's regulation that talks about how banks need to be able to speak to customers and provide content in a certain language, or let's say a certain age level of language. So then it's crystal clear. In the UK, you have this English Crystal Clear campaign. You have lots of the custom consumer acts across Europe and Ireland, etc. Right? So one real life example is kind of simply that we took a lot of the literature, a lot of the compliance information for a large bank in Ireland, and we essentially helped their legal team that were working, 6 days a week. We brought it down to 4 days a week because we automated the process in which they would take the definition of their instruments, the fees, the charges, etc., the way that these financial solutions and products are working. And then we took the compliance information to say, well, you have to speak about it in this way. You have to be clear about how you speak it. You have to match the age of an 11-year-old, because that's the baseline across the nation and across the continent, right? And this is a great way to then show the automation piece, because you have the three pieces, right? You have the information that provides the product, you have the compliance information, but more importantly, you have the historic information of how a human before brought the two pieces together and then created essentially a compliant piece. Could be marketing, product information, whatever it may be, right? And I'm not trying to say that was, a boring job, right? But this is a great example of something that is incredibly high effort. It's incredibly high effort to look at something that's regulatory based and say, well, actually, I understand it, but does, Mr. Joe in the street understand it the same way that I do as well? And then validate that example. And the perfect piece I give with machine learning, is that we can take a human, we can validate the output of a human, but it's very hard to scale that human 10,000 times, change certain parameters, and then validate what the view of the world looks like. But the beautiful thing we have with machine learning is we can do that across different models, across different inference parameters as well. And we can validate what gets us up into that 90% accuracy points.
Wow. Well said.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a great example. It's so grounded in something that I think probably every single person I bet every person on this call or on this webinar can appreciate is like if you've ever sat down, like I've done it, right, and read the terms and conditions of like a financial product, and I'm like reasonably educated, I'd like to imagine, and geez, like 3 sentences in, and you're like, I don't know about this. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is what's really kind of fun that we're seeing now. There's so many applications across so many different verticals here because we all just want an easier way to be able to do something. We have the data there already. We have the processes there already. And actually what we want to do is we want to free people from that high effort, low value work so they can focus on the creative work. That's the key part here.
Absolutely. Well, I think your company is like really innovative in this space, but what I think we're super excited about is you actually brought along a demo for us. Is that true?
Sorry, you dropped off there. Say that again, sorry.
We're super excited to see one of your demos. Do you have a demo for us?
I can bring up a demo actually. I brought up
Yes.
a PowerPoint, but
Oh, or PowerPoint and a demo, yeah. Let's dive a little bit deeper.
We can do a demo, we can do a PowerPoint. I actually had this in my back pocket. This is derailed me slightly. Okay, let's think about this, right?
By the way, the smiley faces could not be better.
This is
ideal.
It's a webinar we gave a few weeks back, actually, and marketing didn't have time to tidy up my stuff, so they ran with it. I think instead of a demo, I want to explain something really interesting, which is again like how we explain to customers or how we humanize an agentic process when like we think about the let's say the really kind of specific nature of small language models compared to large language models, right? So again here on this slide, I kind of spoke about we invert the triangle, etc., and we kind of want to free people from the high effort, low value work, etc., right? I've always joked about this, right? But if you think about how we work, we as humans work in the same way that these agents work. It's a while loop. That's kind of what it is. If you think there are threads of processes that go through, everything fundamentally is a sort of a while loop, all the way down to the clock in that little piece of crystal silicon that we've somehow taught to think in our machines, right? There's just a while loop that's going on until the process is kind of done. And why I talk about the whole process of like understanding business process mapping and the business analysis point of view is that when we come into work, we have intrinsic plans in our head about how we're going to solve problems as part of our day-to-day work. And the magic is trying to help customers understand how to extract all that content, understand it in such a way that it's a continuous loop of process until something is done, and then give it to a machine for them to process themselves, right? Because when we think about, what an agent will do in that kind of processes, it will think about what it's trying to do. It will think about what success looks like. And then it will just keep going until it can't get there or until it does get there in the end, right? And that's the really interesting piece. But then one thing that I think a lot of people are not talking about at the moment now is like, what do the paths for success or error look like? So again, day to day, people won't always complete their job. There will be things that happen, right? And one thing that we have to also help our customers when we think about these agents, when we think about the models that we create, as well as like, what happens if something goes wrong? Because if you're promised a process that is, 10,000 documents processed every day, okay, what happens if 5,000 fail? What are you going to do about it? What's then the cost of the business? Who's going to manage that SLA? Who is managing that SLA to the business? It's almost an invisible SLA that brings doubt in the data that they're seeing, right? So one thing we always talk about from that business process mapping is what happens if we go wrong and how do we provide that to the system? And then the really interesting part here is, when we connect everything up, I'm going to skip a few things here and then we can have a look at something else, this is really the nirvana that we're trying to do. How can we expose a user who has that thought process in their head that isn't necessarily documented? It's not put into a standard operating procedure that's sitting in SharePoint or Confluence or whatever. How we can get them to give something to this magical, weird agent thing that's going to connect to other things and then mutate itself and scale itself and think about for itself in a loop with these exit paths, and then come back to the user with 50, 60, 70, 80, 90% of their work done for them. And that's really the interesting part, because what's quite fun here is because when we apply these systems and where we build our products and when we build, Pulse, for example, we built Pulse exactly for this purpose. And again, I'm not trying to sell anything, but it was always about building a tool that hacks the BA process, that speeds up that business analysis, that business process mapping, essentially timeline, and allows people to safely and simply, test and test and test again and validate and see different models. One thing I always push is that you fine tune right out of Pulse. You fine tune the models for you. You use things like Llama or Mistral, for example. You throw in a load of data, and then you have a specific model, and all that model will tell you about is customer vulnerability in the UK insurance sector. That's it. It won't tell you anything about hot dogs. But what's really interesting there is when we speak to our customers, again, especially in compliance and stuff like that, where financial compliance is quite large, and if they're a traditional bank, hey, maybe they're not worried about things like crypto compliance, for example, but it's still something they have to read, still something they have to think about, right? But it's not necessarily important to them. So when we capture all that information and then we feed it as part of this pipeline that then allows this person who is ultimately the domain expert to validate it and then go, yeah, this is good, this is ready for production, and we know what to do if it goes wrong.
Awesome.
How do you help somebody who's very used to deterministic outcomes get their brain situated to probabilistic outcomes? Like, to me, I'll be honest, like occasionally I struggle with that myself, and I feel like I'm, well situated to accept this new revolution. Like, I use it all the time. I love it, right? Like, I'm here at AWS. And yet I still sometimes I'm like, but I expect a probabilistic outcome. And I don't have that.
I think that's a message we see all the time. I think we're still probably quite far away from having these large language models do proper, let's say, maths, for example, and proper numbering, for example. An exercise that we run as we talk about, the vector similarity distance, for example, between 9 and 99 and 9 and 10. When we think about that in like a vector space, this is things we have to think about. And, one thing to my Finnish colleagues is if you ever see an LLM try to write out a Finnish word, for example, or a German word, it can get very lost very quickly, right? And that's really important. But this is what's become quite powerful with tool calling. I think that was almost the greatest revolution that we've seen in terms of this standardization. And the next piece, and again, I apologize for hammering on about it. We work with Anthropic. We bet very early on MCP last year, but MCP is a really boring standard, and that's brilliant, right? It's brilliant. Just like the RFC standard for HTTP, our browsers can access any HTTP server. There's nothing sexy about it, but it always works, right? Tool calling and this standardization of tool calling from these probable things brings us closer to deterministic output for these models. Because even when a human looks at a spreadsheet, looks at a formula, looks at a PowerPoint, and they see a number, they still have to decorate that number and understand why. One perfect example we have with our customer is they'll have a reporting dashboard, for example. They have all the reporting dashboard, all the KPIs, absolutely everything. But what's more powerful is CMO's team screenshot numbers and add a little response as to why that number is there. And what's really interesting there is that the number could be like a downturn, -4%, for example. But in fact, the market could have moved -6%. So actually, they're 2% up. So even though we have a deterministic number there, we still have to decorate it somewhere. And I think that's a really interesting part that you were kind of saying, Wayne, is that how we put that context into the probable part to look at the number and go, well, okay, it's -4. That may not be a good thing, but actually, if we look across the horizon, if we look across our competitors, we're doing 2% better than everyone else. So you call that number from a tool, you extract it from a system, You take all this additional contextual information that could be in a knowledge base, or could be in a fine-tuned model, or could be in the actual context of the agent having run certain things before, and then you make it speak the vocabulary of the enterprise. And this is where you bring it closer to how these machines work inside this organization.
Super interesting. Super interesting. I love your vision of seeing where we kind of started with LLMs and how it's kind of like evolved with this whole tool chart, calling, and then into NCP. So, where do you think will be the next evolution that just takes LLMs to that next space to where it's just going to be, and it's just a huge jump in technology advance?
I think what's really interesting is when we saw just how powerful it was to make kind of RAG-based applications. And this kind of really helped with people creating their own GPTs. And I think that was kind of really powerful. A great example is my son. He created a GPT to essentially help him get through school. And he showed it to their teachers, but he gave the instruction in the sense that the GPT will never give an answer. So we get it slowly to helping people understand how to learn. I think the next revolution now is that when we kind of started this whole GenAI curve, even with the machine learning pieces as well, training and validation has always been a bit tricky. Everyone always talks about like a data foundation. What's quite interesting now is that you can throw in any data into an LLM, for example, and you can have a standardization piece come out. You can actually even have supervised training being created out of any kind of data. I think the next revolution that we're going to see, given that GPU prices are going down, there's greater availability, we're going to see better and faster implementations of really highly tuned, super fast, super small, super focused models, and getting these models deployed out really quickly. I'm really excited. By model providers like Mistral, for example, like Pixtral. A great model that is multimodal. All the other ones that we're seeing on Hugging Face as well. So bringing in all this different multimodality that we're seeing, helping users who don't necessarily understand pipelines fine-tune their own models as small as possible, as compact as possible, and then really run them across the organization. This is what we are seeing at the moment now. And I think this is really the big bet for us at the moment, because over the next 5 years, the more that we get this into enterprises, the closer people get to a 99% deterministic output that's still based on probability.
Awesome. Wow. Exciting.
You sold me. Sign me up.
Me too.
Let's do it.
Well, we only have a couple more minutes left in this interview. So how can the audience get in contact with you, and where can they learn more about Firemind?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can just do a quick search on your favorite internet or GPT tool, whatever you want, about Firemind. We're based in EMEA, so we have offices in London, Helsinki, Munich, and Amsterdam as well. So we're always around. We are AWS only, so if you are near an AWS office in one of those cities, you will see myself or Charlie Hudson, one of the co-founders, for example, and the other staff wearing a Firemind t-shirt and sporting our Firemind bottles as well. So you can come and hustle us as well. We have a few events coming up and a few roundtables coming up as well, focusing primarily around healthcare tech, finance tech as well, some around insurance as well. And we're always there really trying to nip at the heels of the AWS service teams as well to make a lot of the lovely services you give us faster, more available, and more compliant with what we're seeing as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on this week's show, and we hope that you come back and tell us more about advancements in the space.
Thank you. It's been an honor. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, that's just the first interview, but we're not done with the show. So please stay with us. We're going to take a few-minute break, and we'll be right back with more GenAI. Welcome back to this episode of GenAI Live. My name is Ryan Terry, and I'm a senior partner solution architect here at AWS, focusing on GenAI migrations. And I'm joined here with my co-host, Wayne Sachs. Wayne, how about you introduce yourself?
Brian, thanks for kicking us off. Hi, my name is Wayne Sachs. I'm a partner solutions architecture leader here at AWS. It was good to be with everybody. Good to have our audience here. Brian, thanks for joining us. For those who are new to the show, GenAI Live is an opportunity for us at AWS and you as listeners to talk with AWS partners about all the cool things they're doing in GenAI space. Alongside of us and our customers, our mutual customers, sort of in the cutting edge of this technical revolution. We're here every Wednesday morning from 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific, and we just take it as an opportunity to discover something new. I think probably every single segment, every single week.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this week is no exception because we have an awesome guest coming up next. That's going to talk about some super exciting stuff in GenAI. So I'm super excited. How about you, Wayne?
Yeah, I cannot wait. The last session was good. The next session is good. This is like every single time we do this, I'm like, couldn't get better. And then every single time it's like, it's just that good. I love it.
Yes, we are leveling up. And we are live. So if you have questions, please post them in the comment section and we'll try to get them in as much as we can. So without further ado, let's bring up in our next guest. Hello. How about you introduce yourself?
Thanks. Hey, Brian. Hey, Wayne. This is Akshay. I'm a director of solutions engineering at Automation Anywhere. And what does that really mean is that I lead our solutions effort around building out agentic solutions on our platform. And that's what I'm here to talk about today a little bit.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. We're super excited to have you here. Tell us a little bit about your company and what they do.
Thank you. Yeah. So Automation Anywhere is traditionally about been around for about 2 decades or so, and being a process automation shop. So what we really focus on is making work happen. How can we go into the Fortune 100s, the Fortune 500s, and make sure that the core business processes are actually taking place. So if you go into a financial services firm, making sure processes like know your customer, loan origination are taken care of. If you go into a manufacturing firm, looking into their order management and order the supplier management and inventory management spaces, those are the kind of things we focus on. And then most recently with Gen AI and partnering with AWS for such a beautiful platform, which is Bedrock, we've been able to actually take this and move it to the next level. And that's essentially what we want to see today, is how we're using foundational models hosted on Bedrock, different other tools that our engineering teams have worked on SageMaker, to actually build out now what we're calling pre-built turnkey solutions for different use cases. So now our customers don't have to wait, 3 months before something goes into production because somebody's sitting there understanding a process and developing it. But we have, foundational models that we've embedded into the entire stack to be able to make these use cases and make these solutions a reality within a few weeks.
Wow. Super, super cool stuff you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all with this partnership we have with you guys, right? You build out the cool stuff, we try to integrate it and then bring it out to all of our customers.
Awesome.
That's why I love working with partners. That's it right there. You said it all. So you've been doing this 2 decades, right? And obviously the Gen AI revolution component of those 2 decades is like, let's just
2 years or
last
3 years.
couple of years, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about. I'm always curious about these origin stories. Like, a couple of years ago, you probably said to yourself, "Whoa, this is some interesting stuff. Like, what can we do with it?" So tell us a little bit about like how you started to explore the space, because you guys are experts already, but now you've got a new tool. Like, I want to hear about that.
Yeah, so our R&D teams were always looking into, GPT models, transformer models. They were there even before ChatGPT came out or OpenAI came out with ChatGPT, really. But they were still there, and our R&D teams were already dabbling in it and checking, hey, what's the art of the possible? Because we also want to take the latest and greatest pieces of technology out to our customers. So, when late 2022 ChatGPT really came out to the forefront, that is when some of us folks in the GTM organization also got together and say, hey, what can we really do? So that is where, through the last part of 2022 and first half of 2023, it was really a lot of ideating and understanding the technology of what it can do, and not only what it can do, but how can it benefit our customers really. So that is where we kind of came together. We RAG was obviously something which we said, hey, this is perfect, because a lot of our customers, the biggest problems they have, if you go into customer support and ticket management, is that you need to either train a really heavyweight machine learning model on SageMaker to be able to kind of predict the response to certain tickets, and that will probably get you to just L1 kind of tickets. But then I could use a nice RAG data, a RAG knowledge base within Bedrock to be able to make that much easier, much less resource intensive, and much quicker. So that was kind of the phase one, where we said, okay, let's go ahead and take the concept of RAG, apply it to different scenarios, different industries, different verticals, and make that a reality for all of our customers. So that was phase one, which we did in 2023. Then last year we said, okay, now how can we take this even a step further? How can we help our customers write their automations, write their processes, build their processes by natural language, instead of having to learn how to build things on our platform? How can they do it with natural language? So that was the next phase, which was, a flavor of what GitHub Copilot has today, or Cursor AI has today, to kind of build out these different code bases. How can you build out automation anywhere automations? So that was the next phase that we did. And then most recently, I heard the last part of Ahmed's interview, where he was saying MCP is a great protocol and it's boring, which is the perfect which is the perfect way to put it. Like, not kidding. What in one of our internal meetings, when when Anthropic launched MCP, we were looking into it, and our senior product leaders said, this is amazing. And then I go, yes, and it's boring, so it works. So that's exactly what it is. So now we're kind of going into the next wave of how to kind of get tools out there for all of our customers. So now they can use these communication protocols to make work happen really. So that's one side. The other side that we've kind of done in the last 6 to 8 months is actually building out these turnkey solutions that I was referring to earlier. So these turnkey solutions use MCP in the background to understand, hey, if today we'll be talking about accounts payable and invoice processing. So, hey, if an invoice is coming in from AWS, for example, and we process invoices from AWS in a certain way just because it's a SaaS service we're getting from them, or it's maybe an infrastructure service. So we need to process that a different way versus an invoice coming in from my vendor who loads in the water bottles in my fridge in the office. You need to process those very differently, different set of tools, different set of logics. How can we make that happen really quickly without having to, how do I put this, without having to really write code or do anything crazy over months? But how can we make these pre-built turnkey solutions? And it uses our entire platform that I was talking about earlier, along with some of the other things we've been working on.
Awesome. I mean, I love the innovation. I think what you guys are doing is quite amazing and super exciting. So, without further ado, I mean, I think you brought a demo, right?
Yes, we
I'm
did.
always excited to see demos.
Right,
You see my
right,
face, I'm
demo
like,
man.
I gotta have
The
demos.
best way to do this is a picture speaks 1,000 words. So why don't we
Yeah,
just go and directly jump
let's look.
into the demo itself? So this is the accounts payable solution, right? And as a user comes in, you see these different dashboards that are out here, and these dashboards get updated with time as people kind of use the solution. This being a demo instance, there isn't much data out here, but you see these dashboards which any user can come in and configure very easily. But you also have this conversational interface powered by Amazon Q, and you can come in and ask different questions, right? So if I come in here and ask, hey, summarize the last 24 hours for me, it's actually going into a knowledge base with some data that's sitting on these different invoices, and coming back with a response to say, this you processed X invoices in the last 24 hours. These many went through autonomously. These many went through with some human in the loop. All of this being powered by a knowledge base, and then obviously Amazon Q being the front end of this. And let's while we wait for that, any thoughts, Brian, Wayne, any questions on that?
No, this is super exciting. I'm curious on how long does this kind of process normally take?
So normally what we've seen in our customers processing an invoice from end to end, and when it comes in, to process to actually going out, it takes about a week. And our goal has been that we take that 1 week down to less than a day. And we've been able to do that at a bunch of our customers as well. Is that how can we take it down to less than a day? So if, for example, you see this, last 24 hours, process 750 invoices, average processing time was about 8 minutes. And these are invoices that go straight through, right? If you have a human in the loop, it might take a little bit longer because somebody needs to go in and take a look at those invoices. But this is essentially kind of a snapshot of that. But what I can also do, this is dashboards, data, which is great. But I can actually take a look at some invoices which are there in the system today and start looking at them, right? So I can come in here and take a look at invoices that have already been processed. And this went through without any human intervention. I've been able to run this through, see all the details of what was extracted by my agents, what was the three-way match results, and did it meet my payment rules and things like that. But I can also take a look at all the details. So automatically, what our solution has done, it's extracted the data, it's come in, verified, hey, does this vendor exist in my system? It's matched a PO. It's made sure that it's compliant with the contract we have along with this vendor, completed these different audit points, and then gone in and posted the payment. And this is something that went in autonomously without any human intervention. But there are certain cases where you do need the human intervention. You never know what's going on. And these are the different kind of things that can flag. And this is what we work with our customers over time to say, hey, how do you want to flag one, or how do you want to flag the other? Because the last 20 years of experience has taught us this, that invoice processing is still a problem in a lot of the Fortune hundreds and Fortune 500 companies. And each of them have a very different way of doing it. So what we're guiding you with is a certain set of tools, a certain set of validations that we can do out of the box. But then that you're not limited to those out of the box validations. You can come in and say, hey, I do my three-way match in this other weird way that nobody else does it. And we still have the power of the entire automation in your platform in the background. So we will just go in, configure that for you, and make sure it's out. So that way, we have a framework in place. We call it the request, analyze, decision, and action framework. We just input these different validation pieces into the analyze piece of our framework, and we just go ahead and continue building out this entire solution, which is why the framework we have, the workspace we have, which we're looking at right now, all of this contributes to your pre-built, to your solution that you can build out and you can easily deploy within a few weeks compared to a few months.
So
But
it seems like to me, like invoices, as you mentioned, everybody does it a little differently, and it is super difficult,
Mhm.
really expensive, and other processes that would be similar. It seems
Mhm.
to me that the power of the platform is not. Let me say. I'm trying to say it this way. It's the power of the platform is really how it handles exceptions, as
Correct.
opposed to like how it handles all the things that are super simple and easy and just zip right through. So tell us a little bit
Exactly.
more about how you think about exceptions, because I think that's like
Mhm.
that's where the
So
that's where the money that's where the
exceptions,
the rubber meets the road.
yeah, exceptions is the long tail, right? That is where everything kind of breaks. So that's where you break the can and everything breaks. So the way we kind of do that is we've seen millions of exceptions in the last 2 decades if we talk about invoice processing, right?
Mhm.
And we've kind of gone in and bucketed those to say, hey, these are matching exceptions. And these also we've done interviews with our biggest customers that are common AWS Automation Anywhere customers, and we've done customer research and interviews with them to understand, hey, wow, what is the reason for 90% of your invoices coming in and going into the exception rate? So, there's like, hey, something did not match, or there was an OCR issue when we were extracting data out of the invoice. So Number one, let's fix those OCR issues. So we use the best OCR models hosted by Amazon TextRack. We use the best LLM foundational models to help analyze the information coming out of TextRack and kind of get that information out here. And then we said, okay, now let's solve for matching issues. You really cannot solve for matching issues, but you can make it as simple for a layman to understand why this came out into a human in the loop or it came out into an exception. And the other thing that we do is a lot of our customers are acquisitions, right? 50 acquisitions coming together to form a single organization. So they have probably 5 ERP systems. Turns out you don't go in and look at all the ERP systems for a PO and you say, hey, I have a matching exception. So that is where we go in and we start building out connectors to go in and get all the data. Because when we're in this world looking at a different set of POs, matching it up to a different set of invoices, and you don't have all the data, your results or your final productivity is as good as the data you put into it. That's how AI and ML works, is that if the data is great, your results are going to be great. If the data is not good, you're going to have some issues. So we make sure that there's data integrity all across the process. And then we start bucketing these exceptions into matching exceptions, OCR exceptions, somebody that there's lack of documentation for a particular invoice coming in, or the more recent ones, which is what has been possible with GenAI, has been exceptions of that the invoice does not meet the contractual terms. And we have an example of that, I think, over here, where it did not match the payment terms. So we can actually save you money by paying 2% lesser because this invoice came in later than usual. And we start putting that in place as well. This has been a common problem all across invoice processing for the last many years. But now we're able to actually identify that much more easily because agents or people processing these did not have the time and the bandwidth to actually match up an invoice to a contract of their vendor. But now we can do it. So we're doing it and saving our customers revenue and money out there in real time.
Wow. I mean, I'm sure they love the cost savings and the time savings.
Oh yes. Oh yes. And the time savings also let them go in and avail some discounts. So some vendors have discounts. Hey, if you pay this back to us within 10 days, we'll give you a 5% discount on the invoice. Back in the day, you could just not get there. But now, since we're kind of getting so much better with this entire process, our customers are now able to avail of all of those discounts that these vendors put out there, especially given that July 4th is around the corner. There's a lot of these coming out of the woods now.
Wow, that
So,
totally makes
so
sense.
in the same vein,
Mhm.
like now we've talked a lot about how there's moments in time where a human's going to definitely get involved on the exception
Right.
side. What about the flip? What about the flip side of that? Like how much less human interaction? Like how much less undifferentiated
Mhm.
heavy lifting
So
can
I
you prevent?
So I would say that one of our customers actually deployed this in production recently, and what they've seen is that they would have about 30% of their invoices go into human interaction, 70% would go straight through even with the previous solution. So that was our benchmark. We gotta hit 70% on day one, which we did. Then over time, because this is not just a one and done, this also has feedback and reinforcement learning built into the product along with it. So any things that you validate are kind of going back, and the validation piece that we've built out also goes after, hey, is this an OCR issue? So if the OCR issue is being fixed, it needs to go into a different reinforcement learning flow. If it is an issue that is like a payment rules warning, or if it is a PO mismatch issue and the user comes in and say, hey, here is the other right PO that you should be looking for, and this is not the right PO, that information goes back into the system as feedback. So going forward, you're able to do much better. So what's happened is, we started off with 70% day one. In about 4 weeks, we were able to get up to about 75 to 76% autonomous straight through processing of invoices. But the real win came in that 24, 25%, which is still human in the loop. But if a human back in the day would spend 10 minutes on an invoice screen, kind of matching things up, making sure things are going, making sure what's happening, In this case, they don't spend 10 minutes, they spend 3 minutes on this. And that's the average time that they're spending on validating an invoice. Because I'll give an example of that. Now, over here, it says, hey, this invoice does not have a matching PO. And back in the day, that's all you knew. So somebody had to go in, research, why is there no matching PO for this invoice? But now our solution has gone a step further. It says, hey, there is no vendor in the system. That's why I don't have a PO, because you probably first need to add this vendor into my system before you can start looking for a PO. And it suggests the next best action to you. It says, hey, based on past history, based on the past invoices that we've processed, you can either do one of these three tasks as your next best action, and then probably somebody will go in and say, hey, create a new vendor, but also return this to the purchaser because we cannot really process it right now. So we got to put this on hold, but I do want the purchaser to let the vendor know that, hey, we're adding you into the system, so we'll kind of pay this out in the next couple of days. That is the power of this, because now we're able to reduce the amount of time a human is actually spending on a single transaction and send less number of transactions to the humans as well.
I can see how your customers would find that very
Yes.
attractive. That makes yeah.
Yes, and that is essentially how we're doing it, and it's been a great success over the last couple of months that this has been launched. Customers are really loving it, and the best part is this is all hosted, built on AWS. Every GenAI component that we have is using Bedrock or SageMaker in the background, depending on what we're talking about. So are really excited for this and really excited as we move ahead. We're also building out similar solutions in the banking and financial services space for Know Your Customer, in the healthcare space for prior authorization, and then for customer support and L1, L2 ticket management, which is kind of, we did, again, a market research and said, hey, what are the 4 most important things or important solutions that customers would like? And these 4 kind of stood out on top. So we're starting with these, and then we'll go into more spaces as well.
So one of the things that I think I hear from customers, we hear from customers all the time is, hey, like, this is good. I don't have a team of IT experts. I don't have a team of architects. I don't have a team of data scientists. And as much as I would love this, it's inaccessible to the people in my company today. Part of our answer is, hey, that's why you exist. Like, that's why we have
Correct.
partners. But how do you think of that kind of challenge for your platform?
So our platform is actually a business user-friendly platform. We do not want IT experts or data scientists coming in and building automations. Our entire ethos over the last couple of decades has been, how can we have business users building automations? So this follows the very same kind of concept as we want business users to be completely part of this entire build out. But then we also have a professional services team. You don't really have to get in and, some people don't really want to do this. So that is where our professional services team comes in, and their aim is to get in there, build it out for you, rather configure this out for you on the basis of how you like it, and then get out, let you know how to actually manage this, support this over time, and then get out. And then we also have other, tiered support plans for our customers. So if something does really go down, or you do really need kind of some support for an enterprise architect or from a TAM, we do provide those services as well, which are kind of lightweight, low, depending on how much you want low touch or high touch services that you would like.
Got it.
Awesome.
Cool.
Wow, that's awesome. I love how you're like catering to this point in the organization to actually create something that's truly powerful, even without that expertise that you think they would need with AI or machine learning or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's been our biggest thing. Like, we want people who are not data scientists, who are not ML engineers, to use this technology to be able to get benefit in their daily jobs from this technology. And that's essentially been our entire life's goal for the last 2-3 years, ever since ChatGPT came out. Like, I get it, I can write Python code. A bunch of us maybe over here in the live stream can write Python code, but there's some people who cannot, and we want them to be able to utilize these technologies and get efficiencies out of it as well.
It's awesome. Awesome. I love the innovation and I love your
Yeah.
product, and I'm sure customers do too.
Thank you.
So one more hard question before we get to the easy question.
Sure.
So what are put on your crystal ball hat, whatever mixed metaphor we're going to use today. What are you excited to see in Gen AI space? In the coming, let's say 6-12 months time frame.
So, from my perspective, again, we were focused on getting work done, right? So, from my perspective, the other thing that I would love to see is if we look at this conversational interface on the right-hand side of the screen. This is right now focused on accounts payable, invoice processing, my world as an accounts payable user or an agent. But I want to be able to come in here and say, hey, I want to go in and I don't know, onboard a new employee into my accounts payable team. I want that to be able to go in and say, hey, I do not have a process or I do not have a solution that will help you onboard a new employee. But if you run these 5 automations in sequence, you will then be able to automate that employee, and then it actually goes in and starts executing each of those 5 automations in a human assisted fashion, right? Maybe not autonomous yet. Autonomous maybe a year out, maybe in 6 months from now, it's a human assisted fashion of running those 5 or 6 automations to onboard your employee, because that way a lot of customers have these automate, and this is not just automation anywhere, they have automation tools from a bunch of different vendors and things like that. But if I load all these tools into MCP, and then I say, hey, now you have all the tools, go and execute these tools on MCP, execute these tools on their respective execution phases. But automation anywhere is kind of your orchestration layer to actually find the different tools that exist within your enterprise and use them to make work happen essentially. That is what I'm excited for, and that is a mini research project we're also working on in the background. So something that's good, that's really exciting, and something we're looking forward to in the next 6 to 12 months as well.
That's awesome. We would love to hear about the journey you took when you get there on this show, because that's a really cool thing to see. Since we only have a couple minutes left, how can our viewers find you?
So we have our website automationanywhere.com. Feel free to get there, reach out to us, and there should also be a link being posted on the live stream right now where you can actually go in, read more about this accounts payable solution and other solutions I'm talking about, and actually even get your hands on these solutions. Reach out. There's a form over there to reach out to us, and we'll make sure you're able to get your hands on the solution, actually play around with it, work with it, and use it and give us some feedback.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being on the show today. I mean, it's been
Yeah.
great opportunity.
Thank you. It's been great.
All right.
Brian?
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here for this exciting episode of GenAI Live. You can join us every Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we'll be back next week with an awesome episode with awesome partners. And thank you for being here. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Brian. Thanks, Wayne.